Hi, everyone. This is Jeff Risdon from the Detroit Lions podcast and Lions Wire. We're doing a little bit of a mailbag today. I had thrown it out there on our Patreon Slack for the podcast, which you can join for just $5 a month. It's worth it. It's the most intelligent Lions chat anywhere you'll find on the internet. Do it. Find the link in the below the comments here, and we'll take care of that for you. We got a few questions here based on Senior Bowl, but it doesn't necessarily all deal with the Senior Bowl or the draft. There was a couple of other Lions questions there, so we threw it open, and this is what we got. So we'll go through these here. First one comes from Sam. Said, thinking about work ethic, effort, intangibles, etc., was there any player group that the team expected a stronger leader to emerge? It's a good question. I do think that they probably would have liked a little bit more of a dynamic presence at wide receiver. However, I do think that Amon-Ra emerged into that. But this is why they signed Williams early, Tyrell Williams. This is why they signed Brashad Perriman to sort of get a veteran presence in there. Khalif Raymond is he's a dynamic guy. Not necessarily sure that your number 4 or number 5 wide receiver can be a leader. Look, I know he started, but that's the reality of what it was. So I think wide receiver is probably one where they would have looked for a little bit more leadership, especially early in the season, and it just didn't materialize. I do think that Amon-Ra stepped up and filled the void nicely there, though. So I'll go with that there. I'll say this. I think that they got more out of Jamal Williams at running back in that capacity than what they even expected, and they knew pretty well coming in what they were getting with Jamal there. Sam also asked another follow-up question, so I'll read this here. I'm interested if Romeo Okwara, Trey Flowers, or Charles Harris were seen as leadership material in the defensive end group, or if the risk of Hawk's ego getting ahead of his achievements is real. Okay, so that's sticking with the same sort of theme there. That's a tough question. Let me think of how to phrase this here. Romeo is a good leader for sure. Trey is a dynamic presence and a guy that everybody respects. He's a voice. He is not the most demonstrative guy, but he's a guy that everybody respects. One of those guys that when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Remember those old ads? That's sort of the way he is. He's not going to talk just to talk. Very conscientious outside of football too, and I think I know the team appreciates that. So that's what's going on with Trey. Hawkinson, it's interesting because they don't have a lot of goofballs on the team other than Jamal that really show their personality like that. He's got that. You saw his barbecue ads last offseason, wearing the belt, hanging out at tight end university, doing all that. I do think he probably needs to play a little bit better just to live up to all that. But I also think that they're happy with what they've got in him. As far as, long term, I think they would probably like it to see him step up just a little bit more in that area. Yeah, I do. But at the same time, they're certainly not unhappy with him. I think we can find a draft one here. Let me sort through the DMs here. All right. Oh, this is a good one. This is from Grant. How much influence do coaches actually have in the player scouting and drafting decisions? And he elaborates, does Hank Fraley have a big board of linemen and let the staff know that there's a Pro Bowl guard in round 3 and a UDF ATE he can turn into a swing tackle? Referring to Jonah Jackson and Matt Nelson there, of course. It depends on the coach. Some coaches are a lot more into it. I will tell you that one of the 3 that we interviewed down in Mobile, you'll have to check the channel for that. And by the way, subscribe to the channel so you know when we're doing things like this. But one of the 3 coaches that we were there with after we were off the air in a separate interaction talked about some of the players that they were scouting more heavily than others. And yes, he is certainly more interested in the draft than some other coaches are. I think there are other coaches that are like, you know what? I want to have a little bit of input here, but I'm going to trust the general manager. I'm going to trust Dan, the head coach, to get us talent. Campbell himself, he said in November he hadn't watched a minute of college football. I believe him. Having said that, now he's certainly much more versed in it. And this is one of the things that we talked about on the podcast about how important it was that Dan wasn't actually just coaching the team, that he got a chance to, sit back and be more of an evaluator and look broader beyond like, oh, I gotta get a win out of these guys. He's like, okay, I can see what I want to see from more of the players and focus, outside of coaching them, on evaluating them as a talent evaluator, to be redundant. So I think that's probably more where it's at. Are there coaches that are going to bang the table for a specific prospect? Yeah, there probably are, but they're not going to be like, hey, if you don't get me this guy, I'm going to quit. It's nothing like that. I think it's much more of I really like this guy. And then it will be Brad or John Dorsey or Chris Spielman saying, why? Explain why you prefer this person or what you want him so much over somebody else. And then the coach is going to have to make that case. Back up why you feel so strongly about this guy in deference to other people or above other people. And if they sell that well enough, then that's absolutely something that, look, it's a big collaborative effort. The more info that they have in the collaboration, the more, input that the coaches have in it, that's absolutely going to wait for them. So I hope that answers the question. We'll see. We got another one here. Let's see. My screen went. From Maddie in a World of Mats, who's a frequent contributor to these mailbags. Thank you, Maddie. Would you prefer the Lions use the Rams pick this year for a QB or use one of the 2 first rounders next year? Also, who would the pick be that could be available with the Rams that you think you would take? All right. My philosophy is that if you think if you like the quarterback, you go get him. You don't wait. There's always the talk about, oh, next year's class is going to be so much better or so much worse. You don't know. And if you see a guy that you like and you think can work, you go get him. You aggressively go get him. That's, by the way, what John Dorsey does. That's how he did it with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. He stuck to his guns and took his guy, Baker Mayfield, in Cleveland, number 1 overall. Look, decisions are made when you move up for a quarterback. You got to throw out last year a little bit because we don't have enough sample size results to do it yet. By and large, when you target a quarterback and you know that you really like them, that is an organizational commitment to that. Does it work out all the time? Sometimes. Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, those work pretty darn well. And if they're in a position where they see, we'll call it Malik Willis, just because I don't think that there's anybody else worthy of trading up for. And I do think that they would have to trade up to get Malik using one of those picks that you mentioned, the 31, 32, and 34, as well as a first rounder next year, I think would be required to get Malik. If they feel strongly enough about him, then look, I might not agree with it. I'm going to support it because that's showing that you want to get your guy. And really, it's a great situation to be in because you don't have to start him right away. Similar to the way that Trey Lance was handled in San Francisco last year. You've got Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, same ilk of quarterback, can win with good teams around them. They're not going to be the reason that you lose many games, but they're also not going to be the reason that you win them. A steady guy to get you through the first couple of years of the rebuild, and then you turn it over when the roster is a lot better to a guy that has a much higher ceiling. That would be Malik Willis. The only other quarterback that I would consider taking, if they stood pat, would be Desmond Ridder. And Ridder is an interesting evaluation for me. I'm not done with him yet, but I see him being, he's tough because there are things about Desmond Ridder that I really do like, but there are also like, every time you're like, oh yeah, but I see an example where he's not doing what I really like from him. The inconsistency is a little bit frustrating. I do like him as a locker room leader and a guy that can be better. It'll sound weird because he had a lot of success at Cincinnati. I think he has the potential to be a better pro than collegian because I think the way that Cincinnati ran things, they kind of asked him to not lose games at times. And I think if they asked him to win more, and he did have to do that a few times. The Houston game comes to example. He is capable of elevating that. So he would be the other one in that. One guy that wasn't at the Senior Bowl, Matt Corral, also probably needs to get mentioned in there. If they really like him and he's there, I have no problem with them taking him, and I would support that as well. But waiting for 2023, look, then you're at the mercy of another year. They're not going to have the number 2 pick next year. I think that all the people that are like, oh, you can get C.J. Stroud next year, you can get Bryce Willis next year. Aside from my feelings on either of those quarterbacks, if they're the top 2 picks, that's not where the Lions are going to be picking. This is not a bottom 5 team next year. This is a team that I think, with modest additions to what they've got this year and a healthy return from a lot of key players from last year, this is a 6, 7, 8 win team. I have a hard time seeing them lose or win less than 5 or 6, even just if the injured players from this past year come back. So I tend to think that you're probably worrying then, we got to use both of our first round picks. Well, you can use those picks now. Use one of those picks anyways to say, hey, I can go get the guy now that I feel confident enough about to do that. I hope that makes sense, because that's the dynamic that you're dealing with at getting the quarterback there. Who else we got here? And my phone just went whack. From Greg. All right, Senior Bowl question. Do they use an NFL or college football? Good question. The guy actually got asked a lot. They use an NFL football there, and that's one of the things. It was an NFL football. We actually did a great interview with Adam from Zebra Technologies, and he talked about how the sensors in the ball. We actually got to hold the ball. It was pretty cool. It is and so if you've never played quarterback before or never just held either ball before, the NFL ball is a little thicker. It's a little bit harder to get your hand completely around without like squeezing it harder. That's really the only difference in it. Look, it depends on the brand of ball. Some people think that they're slicker. I've never felt that, but I'm much more of a volleyball player and basketball player than I am a football player. So my grip feel is a little different on that. And one of the other questions that Greg asked another one here. Thank you, Greg. Regardless if he's a potential all-pro or a role player, if you can have your pick of anyone, if you can have your pick of any one free agent this offseason, keeping the Lions' positions of need and salary cap in mind, who is the free agent you're picking up? Marcus Williams, safety from the New Orleans Saints. He's a perfect fit. They have to get better at safety. I don't care if they bring Tracy Walker back. I don't want Will Harris starting on this team. In Aaron Glenn's defense, they need playmaking safeties, plural. That's not Will Harris. That is Marcus Williams. And even better, he knows Aaron Glenn very well because that was his defensive backs coach with the Saints. He is my number one target, regardless of position, for the Lions in the offseason this year in free agency. And without saying a lot, I will say that they are aware that he's a free agent, and they are aware of his relationship with certain members of the coaching staff. Doesn't mean that they're going to sign him. Doesn't mean that they're going to overpay to get him. But they know what he offers very well. And we'll go with that. A couple more here. From John. I didn't leave his last name. John asks, Malik Willis seems to fit the bill of what the John Dorsey quarterback is. A guy who can make plays on his own, has a big arm, can run, and is good out of system. That's the question. Yeah, he does look like that. And that's one of the reasons why I think you're going to see more and more buzz towards Malik Willis being the Lions pick. But I'm going to say it again. I said it on the podcast this past week. I said it on a couple of different radio appearances. I've written it. I got 0 cents from anybody, both Lions related and national draft media related, that Malik Willis was under any consideration with the number 2 overall pick. That's just not something that anybody in Mobile was talking about. Doesn't mean it's not going to evolve into that, but right now, nobody sees him that way. Nobody. Other than people that weren't in Mobile. I should probably phrase it that way. So, there's going to be a lot of debate to go over with Malik Willis. We're going to break him down quite a bit. I have 4 of his games that aren't the typical games. I have charted the Ole Miss game. I have charted the Louisiana Monroe game. I have 4 other games of his that I actually downloaded a couple days ago, and I'm going to go through and do a little bit more of a thorough evaluation on him, just to see, if I see anything different. Because I'll tell you, going into Mobile, I was not a huge Malik Willis guy. I saw some things there that it did convince me that, yes, okay, I get it. Like, I get why people are excited about him. I still don't think that he's the answer. And I would be hesitant to take him with even the Rams pick, but I understand the rationale behind it. And I'm going to look, if there's going to be so much speculation about this and it's something that we have to explore, and it's something that's going to dominate the conversations. Just one other thing on that, though. He's not the only guy that can do that in this draft. Matt Corral can do that. Sam Howell, to a lesser extent, can also do that. Caleb Ellaby from Western Michigan, if you're looking for a deeper guy, probably a 5th or a 6th round guy. Not really a runner, but a guy who does go off schedule well and has a big arm, good athlete. That there are options there outside of what we saw. And there are a couple out at the Shrine Bowl, too. Dustin Crum from Kent State fits that bill as well. So don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself into Malik Willis being the only guy who can do that. Crum's a very interesting one. I've seen him play in person. He's got some it to him. Just that presence. He's a magnanimous guy who's going to make guys around him better. Guys want to follow him into battle. That's going to matter. That absolutely matters to John Dorsey. And I'm sure that it matters to Brad Holmes as well. Do one more quick one here. And this one actually came off of Twitter. And the person asked not to be identified. It's a Twitter DM here. Do you think that they're going to cut Michael Brockers? I hope not. He's a good leader, but how much will they pay for his leadership? So in the 2 mock off seasons that I've done, and you can check those out at Lions Wire. And by the way, the second one was done in fun. If you believe that I believe that that's what's going to happen, I got some really, really nice beachfront property here in West Michigan to sell you in the winter. Great water skiing access right now, folks. Yeah, that's done as a thought exercise more than anything else. I have had them cut Brockers for salary purposes. It only saves $3 million. The issue with him, and we got this in talking to people during the season, he doesn't practice. Like, he gets the veteran days off all the time. He didn't produce much on the field. How much are you really wanting to pay a guy who's he's a phenomenal leader. He did do a lot for Aleem McNeil. He tried to do a lot with Levi Onwuzurike. But there are other leadership presences in that room as well. They're not trying to do the quote unquote Rams way and have, Brockers come in and try to instill that culture into everybody. That's not what this group's doing. So it wouldn't surprise me if they cut him. But I could also see them sticking around. That's one of the decisions that they're going to have to make. And quite frankly, he should have some input on it. Does he want to come in knowing that he's probably not going to start? The plan will be to have either Levi or somebody else start over him, and Brockers, demote into a more rotational player and more of a coach on the field type of player. He might want to do that. He might not want to do that. So I think that's where that goes. That's probably a pretty good wrap. One other quick thing, since we're doing this before the Super Bowl, I'll give my final Super Bowl prediction. We did talk about it on the podcast with Chris the other night, but I'll give it. I got the Bengals winning 27-22, and I think that their defense makes plays. Nothing against Matthew Stafford, nothing against Deshaun Robinson, Brandon Powell, any of the other former Lions who are on the Rams. I like where the Bengals are coming from. I like the fact that the people sleep on their defense. That's a really well-coordinated defense that has playmakers at all 3 levels. I think you will see that materialize and result in a Bengals win. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll be back with another one of these before too long.